Let me start recording. To kick off this meeting, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here from various parts of the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and we are all very thankful for that. I'll start by introducing some of our staff that we have attending on this call for the 2021 budget meeting on the evening of January 12th at 5 p.m. To lead our presentation this evening, we have our Assistant Manager of Finance, Talitha Soldera, with us. We also have on staff our General Manager of Corporate Services, Mark Kieber, our Chief Administrative Officer, Brian Carruthers. And as I try to scroll through this list, I believe we also have our Chief Financial Officer, Natalie Wayner, in attendance. I am your Manager of Communications and Engagement for the Cowichan Valley Regional District, Chris Schumacher. I'm happy to be hosting this evening. I would also like to thank our elected officials who are in attendance this evening. In no particular order, we have Director Morrison representing Area F, Director Smith representing Area G, Director Martman representing Area H, Director Yanni DiNardo representing Area D, Mayor Michelle Staples from the City of Duncan. Oh, sorry, I gotta scroll further down here. Director Wilson representing Area C, Cobble Hill. And Director McGonigal from the town of Lake Cowichan. Welcome to all our elected officials, and thank you very much for taking the time to attend this evening. I see at this point we have 4 attendees, members of the public, with us, and I would just direct your attention specifically, residents, to your right-hand panel and let you know that during this evening's meeting, you will have the opportunity to pose questions to staff or the elected officials through the Q&A function that is on the right-hand pane of your window that you're looking at. The Q&A pane you can use at any point during the evening. We will answer those questions following the presentation by Talitha in the order that we receive the questions. But feel free to address those questions at any point starting right now. And the chat function can also be addressed to everybody that's in attendance this evening, or you can address specific questions or comments to a specific panelist that are here. But I would encourage you, if you have a general comment to make about the flow of the presentation or other comments of that nature, to please direct them to everyone so that we all see them and can address them ASAP. With that being said, I will now pass things over to Talitha, who will lead the presentation this evening.
Thanks very much, Chris. If you could send me the ability to share my screen.
It's coming, madam. Here you go.
There we go. All right, so as Chris indicated, I have a presentation for you today. It will take approximately 15 minutes and will lead us through the budget process and the budget potential for 2021. So the CVRD's 2021 budget overview. In the Cowichan Valley, as I'm sure you're all aware, we have 4 municipalities and 9 electoral areas. And for 2021, we provide 178 services. There are a number of competing challenges and expectations that the board must balance when setting the 2021 budget, including how to meet the needs of the public under increasing financial constraints, increased downloading from other levels of government, resulting in increasing pressure to provide additional services, aging infrastructure and increase in construction costs that exceed the consumer price index, legislative changes and higher requirements for standard of care that put increasing cost pressures on existing services, and increasing non-controllable expenditures such as hydro and insurance. The CVRD provides a variety of services to different partners, and therefore the impact of our budgeting process on each electoral area or municipality is different. For example, the cost of the average home in electoral area F, which participates in 32 functions, is $1,333.12. But the average home in the town of Lake Cowichan, which participates in 22 functions, is $651.97. And in Area F, there's also 8 specified area services that encompass a variety of services, such as street lighting, drainage, and fire protection. To complicate matters, some services are provided directly by the CVRD, others in partnership with other organizations, and some take the form of grants to organizations that provide services to the area. The CVRD does not provide education, sidewalks, curbs and gutters, roads, policing, healthcare, or highways. These are all provincial services, or in some cases, municipal services for roads and policing. For most of our services, taxation, which we call requisition in a regional district, is allocated based on assessed value. Each member municipality and electoral area's share is calculated based on assessed values that are provided by BC Assessment. And within this, the distribution between the property classes is determined using a fixed ratio that is mandated under provincial legislation. In 2020, requisition represented almost 43% of the total revenue. The funding for each service is determined in the establishment bylaw, and with so many services, there are a whole wide variety of funding mixes used. We can, however, broadly categorize the main types of service funding as regional, electoral area, sub-regional, and specified area. Regional services are funded based on assessment for all 13 jurisdictions within the regional district and are typically services that benefit the entire region, such as solid waste management or emergency 911. Electoral area services are specific to the rural areas only and are therefore shared by all participating electoral areas on an assessment basis with no municipal funding participation. An example of this is community planning, where the CVRD performs this function for the electoral areas, but not the municipalities. The X on the chart here shows that the entire electoral area participates, while the O is just a portion of that area. This schedule is available on the CVRD's website. Many of our services are sub-regional in nature, in that they provide a service for certain areas within the CVRD, and funding is shared by those participating partners, normally on an assessment basis. An example of this, in this case, would be Cowichan Lake Recreation. And specified areas are set up to fund services that are provided to a number of properties that do not represent the entire electoral area and are different in that these functions are established in response to a petition by property owners to provide the service. A service area is established to encompass the properties that receive the service, such as in a street lighting service. So while taxation is a major component of the CVRD's revenue base, we do have a few other revenue streams. Non-taxation revenue streams that are considered as part of our budget process include user fees and charges, which are used for curbside garbage and recycling and most of our utilities. We have permits and licensing fees, such as building permits and subdivision fees. The CVRD has reserve funds. We accumulate operating reserves to protect against variances and unexpected expenditures from year to year, and capital reserves for long-term asset management needs. Where possible, we use grant funding. And we also have the proceeds of borrowing. Borrowing can only be used for capital purposes. And in recent years, we've taken advantage of very low interest rates to borrow for short term in order to fund capital purchases. But we also sometimes borrow for larger long-term capital projects on a long-term basis. So as we mentioned, some services funded with other revenue sources include the Community Health Network, our municipal MFA debt, curbside garbage and recycling that I mentioned, sewer, water, and some of our street lighting and drainage services. Our current budget approach is incremental, meaning that the current activities and staffing levels are considered as core and are used as a baseline for the upcoming budget. This approach uses core expenditures as the basis for preparation of the draft budget, with requests to changes to existing service levels being treated as supplemental requests to the commissions and committees for their consideration. Core expenditures are defined as those that are required to maintain the current levels of staffing, services, and capital, including reallocations of resources within the operational budgets that do not require an increase to requisition. Supplemental requests for the purposes of budgeting are defined as items that are additions to current staffing and service levels, and any capital that requires an increase to requisition or user fees. This would include purchases or construction of new capital, the addition of full or part-time staff positions, and changes to programs or services that require increases to user fees or requisition. For 2021, staff was directed to target a 0% requisition increase. So in some services, such as solid waste and in the Vancouver Island Regional Library, for instance, this was not possible due to existing service contracts. An exemption from the 0% mandate was provided for these services. Any increases above the 0%, other than those in the services that were specifically exempted, required a business case to be presented to the board for consideration. So during 2020, the board and committees met and reviewed quite a few budgets already, and some supplemental requests have been considered. After each meeting, the CVRD budget website has been updated to reflect the decisions that were made at that meeting. And with all the decisions made to date, the budget includes a requisition increase of 1.95% for 2021. The remaining supplemental requests will be considered at a meeting tomorrow. And if all of these are approved, the requisition increase for the year would be 2.31%. The board will then hold a meeting on January 25th, which is actually a committee meeting, I shouldn't refer to it as the board, to review all of the decisions that have been made and to propose any further changes to the budget before the financial plan bylaw is brought forward for adoption in February. So we discussed the increase to the requisition as a total number. However, as I mentioned previously, the effects on individual properties varies based on a number of factors, including property assessment and property location. Only the participants in a service area contribute to the cost of providing those services. This slide shows the impact on each municipality and electoral area of the proposed 2021 budget, as well as the impact if all of the supplemental and business cases are approved. So both the 1.95% and the 2.31% options. So what does this mean for you? Well, in electoral areas F, I, and in the town of Lake Cowichan, the largest changes are in the solid waste function, followed by an increase in the regional parkland acquisition function. The electoral areas will also experience an increase in Vancouver Island Regional Library. And in the electoral areas, this will be offset somewhat by a decrease in the electoral area services function. Specifically in area F, the average home would see an increase of $24.24. And so this chart is available on the CVRD website and shows the tax requisition and how it's broken down by each function. And there is one of these graphs for every area within the CVRD. In area I, the average home would see an increase of $11.46. And in the town of Lake Cowichan, the average home would see an increase of $11.70. So more information is available on the CVRD's website. We provide a whole raft of information and schedules. And so this is a listing of the number of schedules that are available on the CVRD website that provide total budget information, as well as detailed financial information for each of our services. So the majority of our schedules look at changes in property taxation, but parcel tax information is provided in separate schedules, as well as user fee information. So I'll just take you on a brief tour of what's available on our website. Schedule A presents the changes in tax requisition. It only shows the services that have a change, and it details the amount of the change for that service. Down at the bottom, and I know it's small, but if you go on the website, you can see it in great detail. You can make it bigger. But down at the bottom of this screen is the total difference between the general tax requisition for 2020 and that for 2021. This does not include the change for local area services, which affect only specifically defined areas. Our Schedule B shows the changes in tax requisition by jurisdiction. And in the change due to other jurisdiction columns there, which you can see, this reflects the increase in the library requisition, which is why there's only a change in electoral areas. Also down at the bottom is the increase in the local area service taxes, such as in the fire service areas. Schedule C shows the change in requisition going back to 2014. And you will notice even at the 2.31% that I discussed earlier, it's still proposed to be the lowest requisition increase since 2014 for 2021. Schedule D has a page for each jurisdiction. It lists only the services that the area participates in and shows the change for that service. Down at the bottom, it includes the local service area taxes that are applicable for that jurisdiction and the change in those as well. And Schedule E, which we looked at just a little bit ago, shows a page for each jurisdiction and the impact on the average home in that area. Our Schedule F is our summary of short and long-term debt. And the schedule on our website, you will see, says as at December 31st, 2019. And that's because we're in the middle of our year-end processes right now, so we haven't updated the schedule for the year. There's still some projects which we're in the middle of borrowing for, and so what the schedule will be updated as we complete our year-end processes. Similar to Schedule F, Schedule G has not yet been updated for 2020. There are a number of projects, as I say, we're in the middle of finishing our last invoices and doing our last funding transactions. And so as we complete year end, we will have better information to update our reserve funds. Typically, we would update the schedule near the end of January. So Schedule G shows the capital reserves, and we discussed capital reserves being used for capital projects. There's a portion for capital and a portion for operating. And again, we will update the schedule as we finish our results for the end of the year, so closer to the end of January. Schedule H shows the assessment by jurisdiction for the last 3 years. And you'll notice it's only to 2020, even though we're currently in 2021. The 2021 completed roll was released on December 31st, but this presentation had already been created. And the 2021 revised roll, which is what the actual tax rates are based on, is not released by BC Assessment until March 31st. So all the budget calculations that we've done to date use the 2020 revised roll. On Schedule I, it shows how the requisition for an area is split between the property classes. So while this is an example of electoral area A, you can see that in the business and other category, that category bears 13.43% of the total taxes for the area, whereas residential properties are 84.51%. And there's one of these for each area. Schedule J shows the costs for a $100,000 home and shows the portion of total assessment represented by each area. We include the parcel taxes for sewer and water systems on Schedule K, and our user fees for sewer and water on Schedule L. So it's important to note that an increase in our parcel taxes or user fees, you'll notice they both show a fair big increase. That doesn't necessarily mean an increase to the property owner. In many cases, new properties have been added to service areas. Thus, we increase the total amount we collect without having an impact on individual properties. And so this schedule and this previous schedule show the total amount that we collect, not the amount per household. So those are our detailed budget schedules available on our website. We also have more specific detail on our individual services. For each and every service we provide, all 178 of them, there is a summary sheet, and that gives a description of the service. It lists the amount that's being requisitioned for 2021, the maximum amount that may be requisitioned if there's a maximum applicable, and it does show the split between the participating areas. This is then followed by the proposed 5-year plan for the function. And lastly is the budget detail from our accounting software showing the actual expenses from 2018 and 19, the budget for 2020, and the 2021 proposed budget. And all this information is available on our website to provide you, the public, with as much information as possible. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Talitha. Wonderful presentation of facts and figures. We have a number of people in attendance, but not enough that we would make people use the Q&A function. So we're actually going to enable people to speak in their own words. And we're going to start with Jim Deck. Jim, do you have a question or comment that you want to pose to our finance staff or the elected officials?
No, I don't. I just attended this meeting because I saw Area I and thought I might pick up some additional information. So I've got nothing at this time.
Jim, highly encourage you to think of anything that you want to ask, and we can come back to you after we've asked the rest of our attendees for their questions.
Sure.
Thank you very much. The next person that we'll ask is Julia. Julia, do you have a question or comment for the staff or elected officials of the CVRD?
Well, I'm like Jim. I just kind of attended for my own information, just to learn a little bit more how things work. I'm very involved with the U-Boat Community Association. So I guess a couple of things I noticed, and I'm interested in Area I like Jim. I noticed that there was some money set aside for U-Boat sewer, and also there was some money for U-Boat water. And is there any information you can give me about that? Because I didn't think we had sewer.
Thank you, Julia. I'm going to pass that first to Talitha and then possibly other staff that might want to chime in.
So absolutely, we do have a UBO water service and a UBO sewer service, and only properties who are part of the service area would participate in those services, so would be charged for the services that they receive. But both services they do exist and they're out there. I can't, I don't have a map of the area, so I don't know exactly which properties, but as I say, they are specified area services.
Let me also allow Director Morrison, did you want to comment on that? I saw you put your hand up, but maybe Ms. Soldera already answered what you wanted to say.
Ms. Soldera is doing a fantastic job so far, and if I feel the need, I'll jump in later.
Perfect, thank you, sir. The next attendee that we have on the call that I would like to call upon is Catherine Worsley. Catherine, do you have a question or comment for staff or elected officials?
Well, first, I want to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity in order to come on to this process that is going on. The only question that I have is that looking at the documents and stuff like that, and I'm coming on because of vested interest for the Cowichan District Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Business Center, where I work and help our communities, and definitely interested in that process, the process as to what's going on, and look forward to upcoming for the year, because there's still some issues that I do believe that you were saying that were not, or not issues, but invoice is still not completed for 2020.
Thank you, Ms. Worsley. I'm going to pass you. Sorry, I'm on the grid view. Is Director McGonigal from the town of Lake Cowichan, I think, might want to be able to speak first. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Ms. Worsley, for your comment. As you know, this is the initial discussion on budgets for 2021. As you mentioned, the Tourist Information Center, that would reside in a sub-regional entity in a function. So FI and the town would contribute to that. I believe F&I is through a grant process, and the town is through the town requisition. So that is an ongoing process. Otherwise, on the town of Lake Cowichan budget Schedule D, you'll note there's also a line item for regional tourism, which is well shown in Schedule D as to the impact of that. So not only on the Lake Cowichan area tourism function, but also in the regional one.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. Were there any other directors that wanted to chime in there? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to
And
move.
please, Miss Soldera, if I have strayed away from the truth, smack me virtually and set me in my place.
Let the record show that virtual smackdowns are in place and will be administered without any prejudice during this meeting. We're going to go now to Christine Sandhu. Christine, do you have a question or comment for staff or the elected officials? Christine, I've unmuted you if you're there.
Hi, I'm just an observer tonight taking notes.
Okay. Just want to put it out there for you, though. If you do have a question or comments, we would welcome them. I can unmute you as necessary, but you can also use the Q&A function.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm going to go back to Jim here and see if he has another question or comment that he wants to pose as one of our few attendees this evening. Jim, do you have something for us?
No, like I say, I'm just here as an observer. I thought this would have to do mainly with areas I and F. And I know we had a meeting last year where Klaus at the community hall presented the budget for 2020. And I thought this was going to be more of a meeting like that was. And so I just came along to see what's new.
Well, thank you, Jim, for attending. We have a somewhat sub-regional presentation for people like yourself who want to see what's happening in their area. Obviously, we'd encourage people to go check out the website as Talitha has directed. Talitha, did you want to provide again with the details of where they can find that information on a electoral area level?
Absolutely. So most of our schedules do go down to an electoral area level. They are available on the CVRD's website at under services and then finance and 2021 draft budget. Schedules specifically related to area I include Schedule D, which has the jurisdiction breakdown, Schedule E, which shows the average home tax impact, and then the requisition breakdown on Schedule I. And so those are all there available. Additionally, up near the top of our website, right up in the top, it talks about the draft budget being reviewed by committees and commissions. And there's a budget update which can be found. And there's a link. It says found here. And you can click on that link and it shows the decisions from every meeting that the committee has had thus far. And so it would include any specific direction from, say, a Parks Commission that would affect potentially Area I, and any Parks Commission. So any decisions that have been made by directors thus far is reflected in that schedule.
I see Director Kuhn is not on this call. I will give the facial features of him right now. That's a frowny face if it's coming through. But I'll pass it over to Director Morrison right now to provide some further comment.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and for the attendees, I really want to thank you for taking the time and joining us. And Jim's absolutely right. We generally try and get out into the communities and drill down as to what the specifics are, in regards to our local community parks and the likes and special initiatives that might be going on as far as specific to local areas. I know that in reading some of our budget and engineering, I think there's been some upgrades to some water systems in Area I that I know the staff are really thrilled to get on the community onto some excellent groundwater sources, and Director Kuhn would be more than able to provide specifics to any individuals that would be interested in that sort of thing. But you do bring up, Jim, in mentioning the fact that we can't meet in public and in groups in our community halls simply because of the COVID-19 and how that's devastating communities everywhere, and we just want to make sure that we're keeping people safe. But reach out to Director Kuhn and Director McGonigal's got a firm grip of the expenditures that the town contributes to the CVRD, and we're more than willing to answer questions at any time. But I was just going to bring up one little item that doesn't necessarily play a big role in all of the areas, but does in mine. And Talitha had made mention of the fact that we got brand new assessment numbers coming out, and I'm having a little bit more of an in-depth meeting with her tomorrow because the assessment numbers play a huge role in the impact to what the individual residential property taxpayers pay from my electoral area. And just as an example, a full 50% of the tax dollars that come out of electoral area F come from private managed forest lands. So if they pay 50% and residential pays 46, then there's a set amount, but a good chunk is covered. If for whatever reason the forestry values drop and it were to be 48% forestry and 48% residential, and the little bit left over would be some of the other categories, that could end up being a fairly significant hit to property owners and residential property owners. So I'm very, very keenly interested in the effects of the change of BC assessment and look to not only having a discussion about the completed rules, but the revised rules, because that generally has an impact. We're concerned about the values of our home. I know that I think I've had increases in the neighborhood of 30% in the last 2 years of my assessments in the community, and they've really hit rural residential property values. They've increased them significantly, and I'm sure that all the property owners on the line have seen that in the assessments that just came out last week. So just wanted to share that, and look forward to seeing you on WebEx tomorrow, Talitha. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Morrison. Was there any other directors that wanted to comment specifically on that question? Director McGonigal, please.
Well, not on that question, but I would encourage anyone who's watching to go on to the CVRD website, the 2021 proposed budget, and just first of all, look and see what your local area contributes to and participates in. I think that's important to differentiate between Area FI and the town as to what our tax impact will be. For instance, the town of Lake Cowichan contributes to 22 different functions that we are either solely or regionally or sub-regionally contributing to. Of 178 or 179, depends where you look at that number. So the town of Lake Cowichan is involved in 22 of those functions. The majority of them are regional or sub-regional. So if you look at Area F, for instance, with the impact of forest lands on the assessed value, the town of Lake Cowichan does not have that impact, as we don't have forest lands residing within our municipal boundaries. So Area F and I, with significant forest lands surrounding their boundaries, would have the majority of impact on that assessment. Having said that, increases in assessment do not necessarily mean increases in taxation, depending on the breakdown of those various classes. So it's scary when you do get the assessment and you see it going up 10, 12, 14%, because you figure that is going to be the impact on your taxation. And a lot of times it is not. So just take that into consideration when you do find that assessed value of your home, and how you think it may impact, look at the Schedule D and E on the CVRD website, and that will give you a basis of what the impact might be. Again, I would like to thank Ms. Soldera, great presentation, and all the other CVRD staff members who have joined us. Oh, and the directors too, panelists, thank you.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. Thank you, Ms. Soldera. Thank you all directors who have participated. I see no more questions and no reason to go through the list once again. So to everyone who has joined us, thank you very much. This will be posted on the CVRD website, as with all the other budget presentations that we've done. And thank you very much for your time this evening. Directors, I appreciate it. Director Yanni Nardo, thank you. We will see you again soon. Good evening.
And I'm sorry I can't attend the next one virtually. I do have committee meetings starting presently for the town.